Hello and welcome to SCM This Week. I am Beth Rennie, Editor-in-Chief at ASCM, and I am joined by our CEO, Abe Eshkenazi. Hi, Abe.
Hi, Beth.
So for anyone who's watching, if you do not receive a weekly email from Abe, just a quick reminder that you can sign up for free at ascm.org/impact. And here is where Abe and I discuss the topic of his last article, which this week was on corporate social responsibility and the importance of prioritizing it, particularly at times like right now when it can be very difficult to do so. So Abe, you talked about how right now we have a unique opportunity in supply chain to be intentional about the imperative relationship between supply chain and sustainability. So over the coming months, what are some tools and standards that industry professionals can look to in order to ensure their organizations do implement and sustain ethical business practices?
A really difficult topic for a lot of organizations today, and that is that long-term planning while you're in the midst of a crisis or trying to respond to the current disruption. So the challenges that supply chain professionals as well as corporate executives and almost every individual within the supply chain or the manufacturing or the provision of goods is having to face what changes, what impact can I make today to ensure that we're sustainable, and that means economically that we are in business today so that we can respond to the changes not only that are occurring real time, but what occurs on the backside of this. So the decisions that are often being made are responsive to the short term, but it's important that we don't lose sight of the long-term impact on sustainability and on being accountable organization. It's often easy to make the decisions right now and justify them that we need to respond in a short-term crisis moment, but yet make decisions that may cost us more either disruption and or inappropriate practices in the future. So the first step is to have a long-term perspective, and I'm not minimizing the current disruption, but you have to have both perspectives. What do I need to do today? But more importantly, is this consistent with a long-term sustainable and accountable strategy that the organization has? So that's part of the challenge. Second, coordination and collaboration across the enterprise. Supply chain professionals don't work in a vacuum. Sustainability professionals are becoming more critical to organizations to understand the impact from end to end, from sourcing all the way to manufacturing, warehousing, delivery, waste, recycle, reuse, and having the relevant information and relevant individuals in the organization sitting down together and developing the strategies that will enable the organization to be responsive to a long-term impact of being sustainable and being a responsible organization. Lastly, there are a number of tools that are out in the marketplace, and they are industry specific. The food industry obviously has different challenges with sustainability than a technology company has. So what is unique for your particular industry needs to be assessed and implemented to ensure that you are sustainable and accountable as an organization. There is no one-size-fits-all on being an appropriate, responsible, and sustainable organization. So this is another area that associations and industry associations can take a step forward and identifying what is appropriate for an organization, whether it be in food or technology or retail, and how they can be more sustainable. And I would reach out to those organizations as they develop more specific standards for their industry, but yet there are overarching standards for sustainability, whether they be the Dow Jones Industrial Index or some circular economy metrics that can identify where you are along your journey in being a sustainable and accountable organization.
And your article also talked about how the most vulnerable populations are probably suffering most right now, particularly those in developing countries. So what can supply chain professionals, particularly those in healthcare and pharmaceutical, do to help?
It's a really interesting, sequence of events here. We were engaged by the Gates Foundation back in 2008, 2009 to work in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, on challenges that they've had on last mile delivery of essential medicine, vaccine, and family planning products. And it's important to note the majority of the service healthcare that's being provided in these regions is done at a clinic level. Rarely is it being done at an integrated healthcare system like we are, we've experienced here in the U.S. But yet a lot of the challenges that they face in that market can be related to, or can be seen in the challenges that we've experienced through this disruption. Part of the challenges they had was visibility and transparency within the supply chain to understand how much resources are available, what demand is they're experiencing at a local level, and then how can the Ministry of Health or the Central Management Warehouse be responsive to the needs of these particular clinics. In the past, they used to send out par levels, irrespective of what the inventory was at a particular clinic. So every clinic received the same resources and the same goods, irrespective of what their demand or their current inventory was. So what we wanted to do was provide visibility into the clinic level so the central management warehouse can be more efficient and effective about what is being provided and responsive to the local need of the individuals. Well, let's take those experiences and overlay them with the shortages that we're experiencing today, and whether it be in testing or whether it be in consumer packaged goods, the visibility that's required to respond to increases in demand, whether it be for vaccines, essential medicine, or on family planning products, or on consumer packaged goods, can only be responded to if we've got visibility. So among the things that we can learn is from those frontier regions, how we've been able to coordinate visibility and transparency across the enterprise from the individuals who are responsive and responsible to provide the products and services, all the way down to the frontline healthcare workers that are providing those vaccines and medicines to that critical population over there. So we can learn on enabling a system that does provide visibility so that we can get the appropriate product and resources to those individuals and to those clinics and or labs that are responding to this healthcare crisis. So there's quite a bit that we can learn in terms of efficiency and effectiveness of a supply chain that provides visibility across the enterprise from the front line all the way to the resources or the suppliers.
All right, and you mentioned the circular economy a few minutes ago. You also talked about it in your article. It's perhaps more important now than ever before. Plus, experts say circular business models have the potential to add $4.5 trillion to the economy by 2030. So in order to adopt that circular mindset, supply chain professionals have to begin devising ways for waste and byproduct to actually become the raw materials of tomorrow and the inputs. So what is ASCM doing to help with that?
It's, I think, one of the, holy grails right now is aligning all supply chain activities with sustainability and achieving an organization that is sustainable. And when we talk about sustainability, we view it in our organization on three dimensions. First is economic. Obviously, an organization has to be efficient and effective about how they get their product to the consumer and or the patient. The second is environmental, that your procurement practices as well as your manufacturing processes, as well as your waste, need to have the appropriate metrics and or processes to ensure that you are not damaging the planet while you're serving your consumers and your patients in the marketplace. So there's quite a bit that has been done over the past 15 to 20 years about the environmental aspect of supply chains. And we're working with a number of organizations out there that have a significant focus on there, such as Green Biz, to raise the awareness of being a sustainable supply chain, specifically with the environmental. The last is ethical. And this is where supply chains need to ensure that they are free of corruption, free of child labor, slave labor, or conflict materials, so that we can ensure that the supply chains are responsible and accountable for the way that they either source, manufacture, deliver, or transport their goods or warehouse their goods across the supply chain. There are a number of opportunities for organizations to step up on each one of these areas. This is one of the areas that we've invested quite a bit over the past 2 years in providing an enterprise certification that we are providing for free, the standards into the marketplace, so individuals can have complete access to the standards that we've developed with our partners, specifically the corporate market, in terms of what they consider to be appropriate metrics on either economic, environmental, ethical standards in the marketplace. Additionally, as I indicated before, we should also look to industry-specific standards, whether it be fair trade or the UN Global Compact or Ellen MacArthur Foundation, in terms of the standards that have already been identified for those organizations or industries that are at a much higher level than what we're promulgating through our enterprise certification. Our focus is on the entirety of the supply chain. Obviously, as you get into specific industries, there are more unique needs that a pharma company would have versus a retailer or a textile manufacturer would have for their supply chain and being a responsible enterprise. So working through our enterprise certification as well as through other associations and the standards that they've established, we believe that organizations have the appropriate information. Now it's a focus of implementing those standards across their enterprise to ensure that they are accountable and that they can respond to the market, and more importantly, to that conscious consumer and patient that now clearly understands what supply chain and the impact that it has on their lives like never before.
Yep, absolutely. All right, thank you very much, Abe. Thank you to everyone who's watching. For anyone who'd like to learn more about ASCM Enterprise Certification, please go to ascm.org and click on Corporate Transformation. And to make sure you don't miss an episode of SCM this week, please be sure to follow us on our LinkedIn and YouTube channels. Thanks again, Abe.
Thanks, Beth. Have a great day.
You too.